stage is yours.
I haven't seen a lot of videos of Charlie in a while. And like all of you, I miss him. Charlie called me his pastor, and I called him my friend. To say I was a spiritual mentor to him, I could live 10,000 lifetimes and never repay that man. He was the bravest human being I've ever met. He faced death threats every day and lived every day with joy. He was civil with his enemies, and he contended for truth. I heard a lot about truth this evening. Truth is never afraid of a lie. But a lie can't survive in the presence of truth, and that's why they censor and then put forward their propaganda. And I was thinking, how did we get to a place where anti-Semitism has risen, especially after what happened in October here in Israel? You would think the world would stand with you. But the result is a world that has walked away from the moral law. You see, Jews have a target on their back. Charlie believed, as do I, that Jews were God's chosen people. And you're God's chosen people because you were given the moral law, the law that would be for all mankind, the Decalogue. The miracles of the Israelites enslaved in Egypt, as Pharaoh would release them after the plagues and the Passover, the Pesach, parting the Red Sea, drowning the Egyptian army, God providing manna where there was no food, water where there was no water, would blow quail off course to feed them meat. Their clothes wouldn't wear out for 40 years. Their shoes wouldn't wear out for 40 years. Miracle after miracle after miracle. But it wasn't until Moses went up on Mount Sinai and God gave them this downloaded moral app, the Decalogue. One God, no idols. Don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Honor the Sabbath day. Honor your mother and father. Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't bear false witness. And don't covet. And from that moral law, the greatest miracle of all would prevail. 3 to 5 million Jews would live together for 40 years without a police force or a standing army. Because as our second president of the United States said, John Adams, only a moral and religious people can govern a republic. When the moral law is applied to civil law, it becomes the wise restraints that make men free. But when you remove the moral law, the civil law becomes a weapon to enslave mankind. And you see, in the enslavement of mankind, where in the 6,000 years of recorded history, most governments have been oligarchies where the few rule the many. And in America, we suffered with DEI and critical race theory and watched as communism and secularism eroded the moral foundation of Western civilization, which is the Decalogue. And the decay of this moral foundation, these young people, especially heterosexual males, were put at the bottom of the totem pole of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the pendulum swung, and they became bitter. And so they looked for another target other than themselves, and they picked the 15 to 16 million Jews worldwide and decided to blame them for all the world's ills. While secular progressivism destroyed the moral foundation of much of Western society, Islam, and it's my opinion, and you may disagree with me, I see Islam not as a religion, but as a political structure disguised as a religion. Sharia law seeks to implement totalitarianism upon a free society, demanding your adherence or you die, or you become less of a citizen. And so we're seeing this happen, what we call the Red-Green Revolution, and Charlie understood this. In the last pastors' conference at Terranea, in Southern California, he pivoted. Because he believed in dialogue and he allowed Tucker Carlson to come, they called him anti-Semitic. Because he would declare Israel as a sovereign nation and that Jews are God's chosen people, they would call him a Zionist. He'd be beat up on both sides of the bridge. So at Terranea, he pivoted. He decided to go after the real enemy, Islam. And you say radical Islam. Of the 15 nations that have over 90% population, what happened to the indigenous people? In the 1040 window, longitude and latitude, where 90% of the Muslim world exists, the Druids, Arab Christians, they've been persecuted, massacred. In this one democracy, in this 1040 window, no larger than New Jersey, becomes the target of the world when Europe is falling to despotism. Charlie understood that what we hold in Western civilization is this Decalogue, this moral law. As God would say, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. I encourage this nation I've come to adore, Israel. Return to this moral law. Seek God. He is your strength. Yes, your military is profound and powerful, and your leadership is determined. But unless God builds the temple, you labor in vain. America needs the same exhortation. This is a spiritual battle. I'm a minister. If you take position against me, well, that's okay. But you invited me as Charlie's pastor, and I want to honor him in that respect. I know he'd be moved by this. And I want to conclude by simply saying I did not always have a love for Israel. I was ignorant like much of America. I wasn't a good student in school, and it wasn't until my college education that I became a Christian, became a history major. Interestingly enough, and I want to say this, I know the Prime Minister has left, but I had the privilege in November to sit with him. And he commended Minister Chikli on his English, and I too find it amazing. But I have to commend the Prime Minister, I have to commend the Prime Minister on his grasp of American history and church history. That man is spectacular in his scholarship. He understands the world and the challenges that his people face. And I have come to love Israel as I studied American history and realized our founders studied and tried to figure out a form of government. And the number one book that they quoted of the founders was the Bible. And the number one book of the Bible they quoted was Deuteronomy. They found a constitutional republic with the Israelites in the wilderness when Jethro said to Moses, appoint godly men who are not covetous, who love the law over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. That's where we get federal, state, county, local government, a representative form of government. But what was the Constitution, a constitutional republic? The Constitution for the Israelites was the Decalogue. You see, kings and priests have ruled society and caused the masses to be their saddles that they ride as elites. But it wasn't until this moral law was given to the Jews for all mankind that the kings would be subject to this moral law. And as you carry this moral law, you're a target for all the world because they want to throw off the constraints of God, as Pharaoh would say to Moses, who is God that I should obey him? And now, as I see my nation founded on the model that they witnessed in the wilderness of the children of Israel, that they would come up with the three branches of government based on Isaiah 33:22, that the Lord is our king, our lawgiver, and our judge, executive, legislative, judicial powers. 4 times in our birth certificate, they mention God. You see, blessed is a nation whose God is the Lord. And I say this to you because as I came to understand this, and then in 2006, I visited Israel for the first time, and now it's been over 30 times, I have come to love the nation that loves truth. That you understand the Dead Sea Scrolls are in the center of your nation, which is the oldest title deed in the history of the world, found in 1947. Interestingly enough, that Israel became a nation in 48. The only nation on the face of the earth whose language was dead and then became a national language. This is a nation of miracles. And to stand with you, with that bullseye you have on your back, reviled and hated throughout all of history, to stand with you means I received the same thing. And I consider it an honor. For my detractors, I have been invited by the nation of Israel to come here to receive this award. They offered to pay my plane ticket and give me a hotel. I refused. I paid my own way because I'm here because I'm honoring you. I'm here as a sacrifice to tell you thank you for standing. And a sacrifice isn't a sacrifice unless it costs you something. And I'm here to tell you, I stand with you. Now, in doing so, I now have watched my entire family facing death threats. I've been reviled. And you know what? In the absence of courage, truth is an orphan. And it wasn't Hitler and his victims. It was Hitler and a complicit nation that decided to lie to each other because they were too afraid of the consequences of telling the truth. I will not be afraid of the consequences of truth. Israel is a sovereign nation whose borders were invaded. Over 1,200 of their people were brutally murdered. And they pressed a war upon an enemy that started that war. I stand with them. I stand with your sovereignty. And yes, I believe that the Jews are God's chosen people. And as a minister, I'm grateful for you protecting our holy sites. I thank you for the freedom of religion here in Israel and the freedom of speech, and that you are a democracy in this 1040 window where 90% of the tyrannical world lives. And I commend you. And on behalf of Charlie Kirk, I thank you for this award. May God bless Israel. Amen.